I think the real danger of our crews in those early years wasn't the fires. It was our behavior off the fires that got us into more trouble than anything. Because we were partying all the time, and even on fires we'd get ourselves into trouble because we'd take things we weren't supposed to take. I mean, even there was a couple times when we were coming over fires in the back of the crummy, or in that big blue bus we had. Remember that thing would break down about every other mile.
John was the driver.
But after a fire, we were celebrating. We felt good. We were at home. I'd stop and buy a case of beer and throw it in the back of the crummy. And I remember that. And,
absolutely.
And I mean, the crew leaders we had at the time, I don't know if I should say their names. I can say Dingo. It doesn't make any difference. He gets in trouble.
We wanted to get in trouble.
We'd always report back to the ranger station when we got back in from the fire. And I was always the one that was sent in because everybody else had too much beer already.
Yeah,
and I didn't drink.
preacher.
But they sent the preacher in to make the report, and we'd go back up to our bunkhouse. It didn't happen very often, and there's a lot of things that we did in those days that we'd probably be fired for today. I mean, look at our helmet. I mean,
I got an original.
I mean, and the first couple of weeks, you always wanted to stay in good grace with the artist. Because if you made him mad, you wouldn't have a very long unit, to display. But today, I mean, you can't even have a nickname anymore today. You can't. When did they stop calling Bushmen?
83.
83, when they standardized everything, and everything came out of California pretty much, didn't it?
Discriminatory to the women.
John, remember when we were in a happy camp?
Consent decree, yeah.
Okay.
And we all went into town, and they brought us into the happy camp for showers. Well, we just had to bust the top at the bar. And we all went into the bar, and John wasn't of age, and he and Burton were underage, so we'd sneak him in, and they had a door in the back, and they'd kick him out, and we'd sneak him back.
And they got tired of him. In defense of all this, though, the people that worked on this crew from day one, they are some of our leaders. A lot of them are. And they went on to great careers. And it's too bad some of them can't be here to show off a little bit that excellent characters. Ones that, worth writing about, as far as I'm concerned. I not being one of them, but I left this bunch in '68 to go on in my career, but the time I had them and kept track of them, they're a pretty good crew. And you can talk about the rowdiness and show the helmet, but that name was picked by this crew based upon some African tribesmen called Bushmen, and how self-reliant they were and how they could get the job done and live a life of comfort in an open environment. So, guys,
excuse me, Chuck.
Go ahead.
But to go along with that, here's my recollection. I think most of us at one time, after 20, 30 years, we would always wish that we could go back on the crew for a fire, just the inner crew. Well, I was very fortunate after I retired, after 35 years, the opportunity came up on this crew that I got to fill in for a whole month as an AD, as an assistant, to be a task force leader, but assistant for the crew. So there's a lot of changes that happened in 30 years. And of course, fire's still kind of the same. It still burns. You put it out. But one thing that doesn't change is the personalities on the crew, and Chuck was alluding to that. In 2009, they're the same personalities. In 1972, you had your guys that could stay clean all day long without doing heavy work. You had your strong, silent types that wouldn't say a word. You had your happy-go-lucky, you had your pranksters, you had all those guys, different names, different faces, but the personalities are same, and that was what I think we all relate to, the personalities and why there's such a camaraderie there.
Once a firefighter, you always are, no matter what profession you go into. You hear that airplane, retardant planes or helicopters. I mean, you know, you want to run out, at least just for a couple hours. You know you probably couldn't survive longer than that. But you'd like to just go out there and put your foot in the soot, you know. I can say about John, you know, he's a good representative of somebody that stayed in the fire business. I have 3 kids that went into the business, or for a while anyway, and one son was on this crew, but my 2 daughters were absolutely in love with him. And I think they learned more from him, just, you know, from his training than they did anybody at that time. Because they respected what he did in his past.
And you know you're kind of getting old when you start telling these kids stories about their dad. But they were kids. They were good kids.
In the olden days, yeah.
In the olden days.
You know, I think a lot of us can relate to the work ethics. We had a good time, we had a great camaraderie, good friends, but we learned to work hard for our money, and that carried us on to our future careers, positions, everything we've done, because we've all related back. Well, I remember back in the Bushmen days when men were men and whatever, but we learned how to work, you know.
The
Preacher was one of the supervisors. I mean, he was on my ass like, you know what, if you weren't working hard. So you quickly learned. And then, you know, later in career, I would tell that to my employees. Well, back in the day, this is what would happen to you. And, you know,
the toughest job you ever loved. Because if you didn't like it,
You didn't stay.
you didn't stay.
A lot of people.
And the other thing about firefighting is, as you know, is that most of it isn't exciting, you know, active fire line. It's mostly just boring, dirty, mop up,
Dirty.
and sticking with it, you know, even though you didn't want to, you know, and you did that because you're proud of who you are and what you were doing. And I think that's still true today. And I really don't know if they're allowed to fight fires as aggressively nowadays as we did. You know, we could look at a mountain and see a fire on it, and our first impulse was we could do that. We could put a line across the, you know, and then a little bit more thinking would, you know, would tell us no, we can't. But our attitude was we can dig the line faster than anybody, anywhere on any fire, and we weren't afraid to do it. And I don't know if some of that has gone away, some of that feeling, because we're so restrained now in firefighting.
No, I think that's true, Preach. Back in the old days and stuff, the strategy was sort of given to us, but we figured out the tactics out there.
Okay.
Now it's almost not only is the strategy given to you, the tactics are given to the crews, the firefighters now, much more so than us.
Yeah.
We went out there, ground truth things, and went after it the best way we thought could happen. Chuck would check things out. Okay, here's what we're going to do. And now guys like Chuck are given an incident action plan that says exactly what his boys are going to do these days.
And there was a certain amount of respect for each other, too, I think. You want to do your fair share so that Russ wouldn't have to do more, or David wouldn't have to do more.
But I think another problem today, though, or difference is I think the forests are a lot more dangerous today, more volatile. I mean, because they're so overgrown. Because we were so successful in doing what we did 40 years ago, you know, the forests now are more dangerous, you know, to fight fires in because they are burning hotter and faster. So I understand that hesitancy.
that was a cause of Smokey the Bear.
Right.
Get it out.